beautiful friendship.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
No. I am your father.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
You're listening to After the Ending, the only film podcast where we tell you what happens after the ending of your favorite films. And now, here are your hosts, Mike Spring and Phil Edwards.
Hello and welcome to After the Ending. I'm Mike Spring.
And I'm Phil Edwards.
And Phil, before we go much further, I feel like I should give a quick disclaimer to anybody watching or especially listening on the podcast afterwards. I am trying a all-new audio microphone setup tonight, new speaker, new microphone. Everything is brand new. So hopefully people watching live can hear me. I know Phil can hear me, so I figured that's a good first step. But if you're listening, thanks, Phil. If you're listening on the podcast and I sound a little far away or a little different than normal, it's a temporary glitch. I won't know how it sounds until after we're done. So it'll just be for this episode, the next episode, and then I'll be back to normal. So bear with us if I sound like I'm underwater or anything weird like that. Okay, disclaimer over.
Well, it does sound like you're far away, Mike. It sounds like you're all the way in the US of A.
Thanks,
but
Phil.
For any new listeners, new watchers, viewers, whatever you want to call yourself, if you don't know, Mike is over in upstate New York, whereas I am in England, Blighty, just over the water from Liverpool, the other side of the Mersey, where a little band called the Beatles came from.
Funny, one of my Beatles Facebook groups is having a conversation about what it's like for people who live in Liverpool. And of course, I thought of you, but that's a whole nother discussion for another time. So what is your t-shirt tonight, Phil? I can't quite make it out. Show me what we got. Here's a Joker or something. No, it's
Loki and the Joker.
Oh, Loki and so it's Jokey. I get it. It's a mashup. That's why I was having a hard time deciphering.
Yes.
I like it. Very cool.
And what's on your t-shirt?
Oh, this is just Sun Studios. It's where in Memphis, where like Elvis and Carl Perkins and like all the great rock and roll pioneers in the 50s recorded their albums. I have not been there, unfortunately, but I have family that lives in Tennessee, so I asked them for a Sun Studios shirt because it's like, it's a rock and roll, legendary place. So someday I'll go visit it.
Classic. Yeah, I'd like to go there myself.
Sounds like we got a new segment. What are Phil and Mike wearing today?
Yeah,
look at the Oscars and stuff. What are you wearing today? Well, today I'm wearing Jokey by Graphic Tees or whoever.
For anybody who's watching us live on Facebook as well, you can leave a comment on the post where this video is playing, and we'll be able to see it, and we can pop it up on the screen as well if it's relevant to the conversation, or we just like the cut of your jib. So yeah, that's as and when we are talking about things.
Yeah, please leave comments. We like the comments; they're fun. All right, so Phil, why don't you tell people what we are talking about in tonight's episode?
Yes, in the main feature, we're going to be going after the ending of The Lost Boys because there's no sequels to that whatsoever. And then we'll be also talking about remakes, discussing them because there has been mention in the news this past week that there will be a remake of The Lost Boys because Hollywood. And then in our post-credit episode, we're going to be doing our top 5 horror comedies and giving our after the ending recommendations.
There you go. I think we firmly established throughout the history of the show, which, let's be honest, has been going on for like 4 years now, that we kind of discount the straight-to-video sequels that come out. A lot of times they do these movies, they'll take a franchise name, they'll call it a sequel, it'll be like, Out of Africa 2, but it was made 30 years later and has nothing to do with the original at all. And we generally just discount those. Now, I will say, because I reviewed both of the Lost Boys sequels, and actually that's where I first met Corey Feldman at New York Comic Con, was when he was promoting the first one of those. So if I can remember, I'll share the picture from that on social. Cool. But they're not great. But actually, there's 2 of them. The first one is okay. The second one's actually pretty good. Where they got Corey Haim back with Corey Feldman and Jameson Newlander. It's pretty solid. It's not great, but it's good. But both of them are kind of like long after the fact, quote sequels. We're discounting them. So if there are any diehard Lost Boys fans out there who are like, we've seen Lost Boys, The Hunt or whatever they're called, the sequels. We're just skipping over those.
Yeah, and also it's our show, and we can do what we want.
That's right. I mean, heck, we skipped over several Aliens and Predator sequels just so we could do our after the endings for the best films in those franchises. So why not?
Yeah. And you can go back and listen to them. Just go through the vast back catalogue we have, and you'll find lots of films that you like. Some you might not like, but you might like what we do with the endings. But yeah.
So let's talk Lost Boys a little bit, shall we? I'll give my recap, and then we can share what we think about it before we get into our endings. Is that how we usually do it?
Sounds good.
I don't know. I'm winging it tonight. All right. So The Lost Boys from 1987, directed by Joel Schumacher, one of the great hit or miss directors of all time. Made some brilliant films. Made some truly awful films. Stars Kiefer Sutherland, Jason Patric, Jamie Gertz, Corey Feldman, and Corey Haim. And in The Lost Boys, in case you've forgotten, I think it's pretty much a classic, so most people are familiar with it. But teens Michael and Sam Emerson moved to Santa Clara. Very nicely done, Phil. Teens Michael and Sam Emerson moved to Santa Clara, California with their divorced mom to live with her weird grandfather. Michael, the older brother, becomes fascinated by Star, a young woman who hangs out with a bad crowd, as in vampires, bad crowd. They are led by David, played by Kiefer Sutherland. The vampires try and lure Michael into their circle. Sam becomes friends with Edgar and Alan Frog, two weirdo vampire hunting brothers. Michael starts turning into a vampire, but since he hasn't killed anyone, he's still able to be saved. So eventually Michael, Sam, and the Frog brothers kill all the vamps in a showdown at their house, except for Star. Oh, yeah, and Laddie, who's like a young boy vampire who I haven't mentioned because he's kind of a weird throw in there. And it's revealed at that time that their mom's boyfriend, Max, is the real head vampire, which is why Michael didn't turn back into a human. But then Grandpa crashes through the house and impales Max with a big post on his truck, and he saves the day. And that's The Lost Boys.
Well done. So that's a real good. You summed it all up very nicely.
Thanks. I try and keep them brief. There's a lot going on in some of these movies, even a simple one. Let's talk about Lost Boys for a second before we do our ending. Phil, it is definitely considered a classic. I think a lot of people, at the very least, it's beyond a cult classic, I think. It was a hit. There's plenty. You can buy posters and T-shirts and stuff still. I mean, it wasn't one of the big hits of the 80s, but it was definitely a hit of the 80s. How do you feel about The Lost Boys?
Well, I really like it. I've always enjoyed it. I've not seen it in a long time, but funnily enough, this Thursday I'm going to see it on the big screen because it's playing at Plaza Cinema over the water at Crosby, which is a part on the coast in Liverpool. But I'm going to see that with my friend Paul. I'm really looking forward to seeing it because it's a cool Art Deco old style cinema as well. So it's going to be nice going to that cinema because I've never been, but also to see The Lost Boys on the big screen because I never did see it on the cinema when it
I don't think I did either. I think I was a video kid with that one because I was pretty young when it came out. I think I saw it. I mean, I was like 12 when it came out, so I saw it like right away on video. I just didn't go to my parents. I don't think took me to the theaters to see a vampire film. At 12 years old. That's interesting. First of all, I'm super jealous because that sounds awesome. So congrats. I hope you have a great time, and I bet you'll really enjoy the film because I think the theatrical experience can add so much to it. I really like Lost Boys. I have a weird experience with it. It's one of those movies, and I want to preface this by saying I really, really, really do like The Lost Boys a lot. It's a really fun film, and I enjoy it. I love the cast. I like the music. I like the look of it. It's a fun, enjoyable film. But every time I watch it, I get really excited because I'm like, yes, Lost Boys, and it always comes in at like 90% of my expectations. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like I always think I'm gonna watch this and I'm gonna be the best movie ever, and then I watch it, I'm like, that was pretty darn good. You know what I mean? Like I enjoyed it. Do I is it like one of my absolute favorites? No, it's not. But it's certainly a movie I revisit every couple of years because I have a real soft spot in my heart for it. I was obsessed with it when I was a teenager. And I love the idea of it. And like I said, I really, really like it. But whenever I rewatch it, I'm always kind of like, there's just a little something missing that keeps it from being like perfect.
I know what you mean. It is one of them. It's got a good cast. Lots of people starting out in their profession as well. Yeah. But it's like you said, it was one of those ones watching it when you're a teen and in the early 20s. But I remember going on some holidays or being out with some friends, and if it was a misty night, running through the mist and stuff like that, and calling out Michael and all that stuff. Eating rice and things. There's all. I think it's entered the cultural lexicon. Right? Yeah. But it often gets referenced in things, TV shows, day-to-day life. It's one of those films which is just lived beyond what you'd expect. Yeah. I always liked as well. You did feel like the whole. Is it Santa Clara? Is that the name of the town?
Yeah, Santa Clara. Yeah.
It always has that. It did feel like. It was like a living, breathing town as well. You seem to be. I've noticed more with films, as recent films. It doesn't feel like it's a proper town, but whereas films from the 80s and early 90s, it does feel like it's slice of life kind of
Yeah.
people living there. I'm not quite
Right.
sure what changed. Maybe things have just become too slick and too clean the way they make films.
Interesting. You know, I feel like I do feel that you still get that sometimes, but I think it has to be a conscious decision on the part of the filmmakers. That's my interpretation of that. I think you can make a city or a location a part of the film, a character in the film, but if you don't work at it, it tends to fall by the wayside. And I feel like they spent more time on that back in the 80s and 90s. But I think you can still see some good examples of it nowadays, you know. But no, I agree. I think it's a perfect film for a teenager. There's so much to love about it as a teenager. There's lines you can quote, and it's got the great soundtrack, and it's got a really kind of slightly rebellious feel to it. Like you feel like you're dangerous when you're watching Lost Boys as a teenager. And I think part of it maybe is just as I grew out of being a teenager, you know, I watch it and I still really like it. I don't want anyone to think I don't. It's just not the same experience. Maybe that's part of what I'm feeling. Maybe it's not disappointment in the film as much as it is my reaction to it as an adult, you know?
Yeah, you know, an adult and a parent as well. So, you know, kids shouldn't be playing out in the dark with these.
Right. Now I'm a dad and I'm like, don't go hang out with vampires. What's wrong with you? Are you kidding me? That is very unsafe. Very unsafe, you know?
Yeah, those guys in the comic shop, they're a bit weird.
Right. Exactly. Like, don't those two kids that have the comic book shop, like, I don't want you hanging out with them. They're weird. You're like, that's you know. But as a teenager, you're like, yeah, I want to be best friends with those guys, you know. And now you're like, don't hang out with the strange kids, you know. So I think that might be part of it, but I do still really enjoy it. All right, well, let's get into our endings then. Phil, do you want to go first or me to go first? Your pick.
I go first.
All right, we're going to try something new on our video here while Phil. So Phil, go ahead and give us your ending.
Okay. As Grandpa finishes the beer, he looks confused for a moment, but then smiles. I remember now, he chuckles. That was a good spell. He then sits everyone down and tells them a tale. Max had, with the help of his mistress, he cast a spell on Grandpa to forget who he really was. Turns out he was the wizard of legend, or Merlin, or Mr. Merlin, if you will. He'd been fighting through the ages, Merlin had been fighting through the ages against Morgana Le Fay, but she had made a pact with dark forces and become the first vampire. She had then caught and turned the Knights of the Round Table, who had become vampire lords, working from the shadows to gain power and followers. But of Arthur, there was no sign. Unable to kill Merlin, they had hidden his memories away, and every few decades, mind wiped him again and moved him somewhere new because he didn't really age. He just liked drinking beer and going for drives in his truck. But now the spell was broken, and Merlin was angry. Sam, Michael, Star, Lucy, and the Frog Brothers were stunned but eager to help. We need to find Arthur, said Grandpa, after finishing the scrying spell. It appears fate is smiling on us, though, as Arthur's been reincarnated as a man called Eric Brooks. But what's that got to do with fate, asked Michael. Well, he's already hunting vampires, said Merlin, but they call him a different name. We need to find the Daywalker. We need to find Blade.
Yeah, all right. Full round of applause for that. I like your blending of all the different legends and characters there. We got Merlin, we got the Knights of the Round Table, we got Blade in the end. And when you said Eric Brooks, I was thinking about it, and I was like, that name sounds familiar, but I'm not placing it. And then you said the Daywalker. I was like, well, of course I should have gotten that. So very nicely done. I like it.
Thank you.
I like it. All right. Well, let me do mine. I went in a slightly different direction, which is always good, I think. So, all right, now this is gonna be tricky. I got to try and do the little camera switch and get my notes ready. So bear with me for 1 second while I do this. Here we go. All right.
I can see you.
All right, here we go. So Michael, Star, and Laddie are instantly transformed back into regular humans with the death of Max. When things settle down, Grandpa reveals that vampires have lived in California as far back as the 1800s. Wyatt Earp was the first vampire hunter in California, and then he was succeeded by a number of high-profile vampire hunters who used their riches and fame to secretly fund continuing the mission. That included Shirley Temple, Robert Frost, Jack London, General George S. Patton, Julia Child, surprisingly, and more obviously, Clint Eastwood. All famous Californians who hunted vampires.
Nice.
As the vampire population dwindled, it fell to regular people like the Emersons to watch over the small towns and keep them safe from vampires. Now, Grandpa tells them it's time to turn the legacy over to their generation. So, Michael, Sam, Star, and Alan and Edgar are charged with keeping the town safe from vampires from now on. Now, of course, they're confused because they think they just got rid of all the vampires, but Grandpa says, they always come back eventually. And he's right. 14 years later, Star and Michael, now married, have just sent Laddie, who now goes by Liam, which is a much better name. They send him off to college when Sam calls and tells them of a series of mutilated bodies that have been found down by the boardwalk. Michael tells Sam to get the Frog Brothers and meet them there that night. Now, wait, I have a little, I didn't have it queued up properly, but I have a little cue here. Let's see if I can make this work. Okay. So they're going to meet at the boardwalk. Cue the loud rock music. And a montage of everyone getting loaded up with holy water, garlic, steaks, water guns, headbands, camouflage jackets, fingerless gloves, high-top sneakers, everything.
Awesome.
Finally, the next generation of vampire slayers is on the hunt. When they get to the boardwalk, they arrive just in time to witness the aftermath of a vampire battle. As the smoke and the vampire dust clears, a blonde teenage girl emerges from the chaos, sees the group in all their glory, and says, "Oh, hi, I'm Buffy. Cool outfits." And that's
Excellent.
the end.
Excellent.
Thanks. So we both brought some other pop culture, popular,
Vampire Hunters in,
people. Let me get the view back to including you. There we go. We both got some pop culture figures in there. It's kind of fun, but we went in different directions. I like it. All right, cool.
I like the fashion.
I wanted to kind of
you need the headbands and leg warmers and things, I think, to be a proper vampire hunter.
Yeah, I think so. I think that the Lost Boys is both timeless and very much of its time, and so I just like the idea of them all in like 2001 era, like getting just jacked up in like their Rambo looking clothes and everything, and all the fingerless gloves and all that stuff. I think that would be really fun. So a little 80s throwback. So kind of gotta pay tribute to the era from which the film came, I think.
Excellent. No, I like that.
Excellent, thank you. Appreciate that. So, all right, we got a bunch of viewers coming in. If anybody's watching live, please feel free to leave some comments. We just wrapped up our After the Endings for the Lost Boys. So if you have thoughts on the Lost Boys, feel free to throw them in the comments. But meanwhile, we're going to switch topics, and this is even more wide open for comments. So please feel free to comment. We're going to talk about remakes. But wait, let me show you. Hang on a second. I got to do. It's not easy doing all this stuff on the fly. I created a special title for this one that I'm going to display right now. So hang on a second. Here we go. What's the deal with all these remakes? That's in best Jerry Seinfeld voice. For those of you who are listening to the podcast and can't see the video, it says in best Jerry Seinfeld voice, what's the deal with all these remakes? So that was a terrible Jerry Seinfeld voice, but
better than I could do.
Probably true. But we thought since Lost Boys is going to be remade, let's talk about remakes and what we think of them and the whys and the wherefores and all that stuff. So, Phil, kick us off. This was your topic, so what do you think?
As you mentioned, the reason we did the Lost Boys is because last week there was the mention they're going to do a remake starring Noah Jupe and Jaden Martell, who's Jupe was the kid from The Quiet Place and Honey Boy, and Martell, he was in Knives Out. He's also been in the live action Morty and the Rick and Morty things with Christopher Lloyd. But yeah, and it's when I posted the news on the Live for Film site, there was much wailing and gnashing of teeth and the usual, no, why do a remake? Why? And this is why I always go, well, remakes often they'll bring people into the film, that the original film, so people might not have been aware of it, but it could bring a new generation to it. And also the remake might be good. More often than not, it's lousy, but every now and again you get a decent remake. But this one with the Lost Boys really did seem to grab a lot of people, and they weren't happy about it. Nobody seems to want it. I'm kind of thinking, well, if they change it, if they go a kind of a different way, it could still work. Maybe it could be set in there because, as you say, vampires always come back to California. Right.
Speaking of which, though, we do have a comment from James P. On Facebook saying Lost Boys remake, no. Just no. So that kind of personifies everything you were just saying, right? I think I think people really do love this film a lot. So the idea of when you remake something that's kind of like, yeah, whatever, it's kind of like people are like, but when you remake a really beloved film, I think people tend to get a little more incensed about it,
Yeah.
So we talked about why. James also has a comment on that. I might as well throw that one up. He says, the deal is Hollywood ran out of ideas. Laziness and profit is the agenda. That is sometimes hard to argue with.
Yeah, very true. Profit's always the agenda when it comes to Hollywood because at the end of the day, it's the movie business.
I'm gonna argue with one point that James made though, and I'm gonna argue it, but not that strenuously because it's a half argument. Here's the thing. I don't think that Hollywood ran out of ideas per se. I think what happened though was Hollywood got lazy, yes, and said, why bother taking a chance and dropping all this money to develop a new IP, a new intellectual property, try and create a new franchise like Top Gun or whatever it might be, when we can just take an existing franchise and skip the middleman. We don't have to build it up. We don't have to do all the groundwork and lay down all the characters and all that. We can just take this thing that people already like and make it. I think there are probably a ton of screenwriters and movie development houses out there that want to do original ideas, but the studios are much less willing to spend the money on them now. And so that is why we're getting so many remakes. That's my opinion, personally.
No, I think you're right. It's because it's hard coming up with an original idea that's good, that works well, and the laziness kicks in. Then it's they're going, well, oh, I don't want to spend time trying to come up with something where this is already there. You know, I think that's lots of the reason we're seeing. I mean, it's the same in TV as well with Star Trek. It's something which people know and love, and like you say, it's easy to do it, but it's just, I don't know. As I said, you do get the occasional good one remake because Scarface. I mean, we've got John Carpenter's The Thing. There's quite a few actually when you get going.
I think in those cases though, so you got I mean, there's one and a half good examples. I'm not a big fan of Scarface, and actually the original 1931 or 32 Scarface I think is an underrated masterpiece. But I think that's like the Thing type of remake. It's you've got the distance of time because it was like 30 years in between. Although I guess that's really the same as Lost Boys now. But there was also there's a whole revolution in filmmaking between the 1950s, The Thing, and the 1980s, The Thing. You know what I mean? It's like two different eras of Hollywood, really. It's like black and white, PG, chaste kind of movie making, and then like John Carpenter, gory, blood flying everywhere type of stuff. That's very, very different. So I think that's a part of it. But even if we go with those two, it's still both in the 80s. Like, it's still been a long time since we've had a really great, a great remake.
I suppose you could do, if you did because you could do a remake of The Lost Boys, and it could be. It all depends what they do with it, and it's still very early days. Because I mean, for me, when you mentioned Duke and Martel, I immediately saw them as more like the Frog Brothers, as opposed to the two brothers, Michael and his younger brother. But it depends what they do, because they could go full out all gore, make it be great if they made it a proper 18 or hard R, whatever it is in the US. But and just go all out horror because because it's vampires.
But I feel like that kind of goes against the vibe of the original film, right? Like I was saying, I think the original Lost Boys is a great teenage movie. Like if you're 14 or 15, I think Lost Boys is like the greatest movie in the world. I think making it a hard R is gonna completely erase that vibe. Like if they're gonna do a Lost Boys remake, I'd like to see them take on the tone of something like Love and Monsters, which I know a lot of people have seen, but it's a recent film that really taps into that. Like my 14-year-old daughter loved that movie, because it's like fun and goofy but scary and great special effects. Like I kind of want to see them something like that, where like a teen audience can, like, if you're going to make this vampire movie, why not make it like the original was, where all the teenagers can embrace it, rather than just another R-rated vampire movie.
Yeah, that's true.
That's my take.
Love and Monsters is a good one. If they could get that term, that could be interesting.
Yeah. But
I'd like to know, before I make a final verdict on whether I want to see it or not. Well, obviously, I'd like to see a trailer, things like that. But I'd like to know more about the story, the vibe, what they're going to do with it, because they could do like they do with lots of films now, like the Halloween films and some of the others. It could be a sequel.
Right. Yeah. It could very much be in that, or even like the Candyman, they did that, where Candyman is basically like a remake, but it's also a sequel because it does refer to the original film, but it takes place 30 years later, and it's basically a brand new story. It just has references to the original, so it's kind of like a continuation rather than a sequel. That I think would be a better way to go for Lost Boys than just a full-on remake. Maybe, I don't know, because then you could have a couple of the original characters show up, and that would be as maybe in smaller roles, and that would be kind of cool to see.
Yeah, true. But I mean, one of the other ones, there was the Fright Night remake. That's probably the closest to we've got with the Lost Boys in this remake, because Fright Night was another one of those from the same time involving vampires. It was kind of funny, kind of gory, kind of spooky, and then the remake came out with Colin Farrell and David Tennant.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mind it too much because Fright Night was one I saw a long time after the fact when it originally came out. It wasn't. I still think the original is a more enjoyable film. It's got its own charm, whereas the Colin Farrell one, I can't remember what year it came out. But it's I think that could be. It was a semi decent remake, but it didn't really. I don't know.
Well, James agrees with you. James disagrees with you, I guess. He said Fright Night was a lot of fun.
No, it's still I enjoyed it, but it didn't really change the actual setup from the original much, did it? It just everything was just with the better effects and the different actors.
Yeah, well, that's the issue with remakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
James also says, because he's given us lots of food for thought here. He says, "I'm still waiting for the great vampire flick. Interview with the Vampire is the closest we've gotten." Some mileage may vary on that opinion, but I mean, I like Interview with the Vampire. I don't know if I think it's the closest to a great vampire flick that we've gotten so far. Here's and we got a lot more comments coming in there, but let me make a point first, and we'll come back to some of those. Here's what I don't understand sometimes, though. Something like Lost Boys. You know, it's like, okay, so they put it out there that they're remaking Lost Boys, and all the fans, of course, are up in arms about it because it's like, no, you can't ruin our childhood and remake this film. Here's what I don't get sometimes. Like, why doesn't Hollywood just rip itself off and like just make a movie about a couple of teenagers who move to California and have vampires and call it something like California Vampires, which is a terrible name, but whatever, you know, so like that, and then people can be like, well, that totally rips off Lost Boys, but then you're not directly kind of comparing it, you know what I mean? Because it's not the same film.
It just comes out the trailers, and because then you haven't got the weight of expectation.
Right, like if you think about what's the one I'm trying to think of now, it's always the comparison that I make, and now I can't think of it. It's the Point Break remake. There's another film that came out like 20 years after Point Break, and basically not the remake of Point Break. It's just another film. It basically completely rips off Point Break.
Oh crap! Yeah, I know what you.
But it's not Point Break,
yeah.
And it's a complete ripoff. It's like an undercover cop. They do all this extreme stuff. Why can't I think of it though? No, this is good podcasting for anybody listening. They're probably like, either they're yelling at the screen, or or they're have no idea what I'm talking about. I will throw this one up. James says Corey Feldman is calling me right now for a part in California Vampires. Yeah, probably he is. I like Corey Feldman. He's an interesting character, but I have a soft spot in my heart for him. He was a big part of my childhood, and I got to meet him a few years ago, and that was like dream come true. Vin Diesel. Fast and the Furious. Thank you, James. That's it. Fast and the Furious is a remake of Point Break. It's a ripoff, of Point Break, right? Paul Walker goes undercover, gets into all these high profile, high action, high octane stunts, racing cars, and then forms a bond with the family of criminals. It is exactly Point Break, but with cars instead of surfboards and parachutes. And not only did nobody complain about it being a ripoff of Point Break, but it actually went on to spawn one of the biggest movie franchises we've seen in the last 50 years. So why don't they just do that?
Yeah,
that's what I want to know with Hollywood. When you've got these beloved IP, I know why. I get it. They want the name brand, but part of me is like, here's a way to sort of subtly be like, hey, if you like Lost Boys, you'll love California Vampires, without without it. I'm sorry, James said he was actually thinking of Triple X with Vin Diesel, but it was actually it was actually Fast and Furious is what I was thinking of. But Triple X, some similarities, I think, but I think actually Fast and Furious is closer. But thank you, James, because you still sparked it in my mind. So that's just what I'm saying, is why doesn't Hollywood just rip them off? Just be like, yep, it's the exact same story, but it's a different movie. And you have a better chance, I think, of fans not hating on it before it's even out.
That's an excellent point. So, but what I'm hearing is that we need to get Vin Diesel's going to be playing the Kiefer Sutherland role.
He could be playing David, absolutely. Michael.
Family.
It's a vampire family, see? The Fanged and the Furious. Come on, I just came up with best new franchise.
Sorry, Corey Feldman's on the phone again with that one.
Street racing vampires, undercover human cop. He gets in with them, and then he has to decide whether he wants to become a vampire or not, all while living his life a quarter of a mile at a time. Come on. Tell me that's not box office gold right there.
That is. On today's date, well, it's what day we on? Just to get this copyright. Monday, the 20th September, 2021.
I'm going to let you read out James's comment because I think it sounds better with a British accent, this particular one.
Jesus H. Christ, you guys are jinxing this.
I don't know.
If by jinxing, you mean making...
Yeah, making greatness. You're right. The Fanged and the Furious, man, I'm writing that treatment right now.
Yeah, I mean... We all know that adding Vin Diesel to a film makes it at least 8% better. No, 12% better. 12% worse. I can't remember.
No, come on now. Vin Diesel's made some good films. He's made some bad films, like every other actor. Anyway, that's off topic. So, remakes, yeah. What's the deal with all these remakes? That's my kind of spin on them. Is I feel like a lot of them are unnecessary. But if you're going to do it, just rip them off and just sort of knowingly wink at the audience. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like the Orville. Going back to TV. Yeah. I mean, that's ripping off Star Trek.
Absolutely.
But it's, in my mind, I prefer that to the Star Trek Discovery and things like that, because it has more of a feel of the Next Generation kind of Star Trek that I was wanted to watch.
Right, and they make no bones about the fact that it's like we're just basically making the Star Trek show we want to see, and people love it. I mean, it hasn't been a huge hit, but it has a devoted fan base. Like, I just think that might be the way to go sometimes, rather than taking this beloved, this beloved franchise where fans are going to get mad about it,
But then I think they also do it because they know fans will get mad and it's going to get lots of traction online.
Yeah, but that's never really translated into huge box office success. I mean, look at things like The Evil Dead or Total Recall or any of those kind of recent remakes in the last 10 years or so, and none of them have been big box office successes. I mean, I can't think of too many remakes that have gone on to just be like huge blockbusters, So like that I get what you're saying, right? Because they want the controversy, they want the attention and everything, but it never seems to actually translate into box office dollars.
Well, so, I think it's probably an executive is going, no, it hasn't worked before all the other times.
It's going to work this time.
Yeah, this is the one.
Yeah, it's going to work with the Lost Boys remake. This is going to be the one where all those fans are going to get mad, but they're still going to come out and see it.
Yeah, the CW didn't pick up the Lost Boys TV show, so this film's going to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the thing is, what I always think is often with remakes is they play it too safe. They try and keep it too close to the original as well. They don't, and any changes they do, it's either to do with it's never anything major. With if they just took a bit of a gamble as well and didn't stick to the story beats of the original and just maybe start off the same way so people come in and going, oh yeah, look at all the remember berries I did, blah blah blah, and then just do maybe from dusk till dawn, just pull the rug out from us halfway through, and you're going, oh, wow, what's going to happen now? Because it's not like the original, so it could go anyway. People could live, people could die. I think
part of the problem too, though, in regards to that is, I don't know that's just that they stay too close to the original. I think the part of the problem is they tend to always pick these films to remake these films that were done by visionary directors or really creative ways, and then they homogenize them. Like you look at let's look at the ones we just talked about. Evil Dead, right? That's a Sam Raimi film that was made super low budget, and then they just did it as sort of a straightforward gory remake. All of the weird fun was missing. It was just a straight horror film. You had Total Recall, which was made by Paul Verhoeven, who was a complete lunatic. You know what I mean? He made all these super edgy films, and they just made it a straightforward science fiction film, right?
RoboCop as well, the RoboCop remake.
Right, and I actually think the RoboCop remake isn't too bad, but it still doesn't quite get the mad glee of the original. So they keep taking these films that have something really truly special and unique and offbeat about them, and then they're like, well, let's just make it as a straight remake and take out all that stuff that made it special and unique. And then they go, well, gee, why didn't that succeed? Well, duh, maybe because you stripped it of everything that made it so beloved by fans.
Yeah, they're all very generic, aren't they?
See, now James says what I keep thinking. I was going to say this earlier. Thank you for reminding me, James. James says they should remake movies that had good concepts but failed on initial release. I always feel it's a missed opportunity to get it right, but they only tend to remake successful movies. Now, we actually did a top 5 list a while back, probably last year or two, about top 5 movies we wanted to see remade. And I know the one I remember off my list was Outland with Sean Connery, which is this really cool concept of Sean Connery as a detective on the moon, on a mining colony, and it just doesn't quite work.
High Noon in Space.
What's that?
High Noon in Space, basically.
Yeah, High Noon in Space, right. Take some of those movies, those ones that should have been big hits but weren't, but that maybe have a little bit of name recognition, or maybe are were on HBO a lot when they were kids, but were never big hits, and remake those and get them right this time, rather than taking these beloved films that are so iconic and so special, and then people are like, well, it's not as good as the original. And then now we have Christine jumping in saying she agrees with James. There you go. So do I.
That's right. Yeah, take a film, as you say, as James said, that wasn't so good, because then people aren't going to care. Let's get a remake of The Ice Pirates, for God's sake.
Right. That's a perfect example. Loved it as a kid, watched it as an adult. It's really not good. But let's try it again. You know what I mean? Like, if maybe you'll piss off some fans. How many of them are out there? You know, like the 12 people who really love that movie are probably not going to make or break your success.
Yeah,
you know?
because they're still going to go see the remake of the Ice Pirates and go, wow, that was really good.
Yeah,
it's so much better than the original.
Right, exactly. You know, like
even if it's like only like a half decent, it's still, some of these films are going to be better than the original. There's so many of those films which you watch when you're, you know, late at night when your mates had a few beers, which are absolutely lousy, but you have a great laugh watching them. But they did that. Like The Stuff. I mean, The Stuff, I watched that for the first time recently. I really enjoyed it, but good God, if they remade that now, it would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. James, another one, Jaws 4, Revenge. Can we get Michael Caine?
Hey, now, listen. Okay. I feel like we've talked about this before, but Jaws 4, The Revenge is actually still better than Jaws 3. I will maintain that until I die. Jaws 4 gets wrongly torn apart. It is not a terrible movie. I'm just saying, I've watched the Jaws movies more than probably, at least as far as the sequels go, more than almost anybody else. And I have to say that Jaws 4, while not a great film, it gets unfairly maligned. And if you watch 3 and 4 back to back, 4 is clearly the superior film. Yeah. Just saying.
Okay.
Just had to get that out there.
Well, look, speaking of Jaws, though, because Deep Blue Sea is kind of... It's not, is it?
No, not really.
Because there's so many different... That's just a genre.
I will echo one of my favorite movie critics, Mark Kermode, though. He has a standard joke he goes to. If there's any Kermode fans listening, you'll know what I'm about to say. That when he talks about why Michael Caine made Jaws 4 was he opened the script on the first page. It said, you know, opening shot, Bahamas. And he went, okay. And that's the whole reason he made that movie. So he could go to the Bahamas and pay for a house. So
I think we've got it sorted though with remakes. Yeah, you need to pick a film which isn't that good, but it has like a few good key moments in it.
Mm-hmm.
And get somebody who can write a script to write it, and get a decent filmmaker who's got a bit of a unique eye to it, and make it that, instead of just getting this generic kind of. Because talking about the recent remakes, Fright Night, Total Recall, and everything, they all seem to have the same color correction as well. They all seem to have the same color grading. They all look the same.
They look very homogenous. I agree.
It's just weird.
I agree. James, I'm going to disagree with you. It is not a psychic connection. If you rewatch the film, it's not a psychic connection. I'm sorry, I have to defend Jaws 4. It is, she is like sensing danger about her children. And I think most parents will tell you they've had that moment when they know something is wrong. It is a very different thing than a full-on psychic connection. I disagree with that assessment. I know that's what people say about it, but I disagree. I think it's more subtle than that. But that's me. But I do appreciate your willingness to engage me on a Jaws 4 debate, so that's pretty awesome. So we've just lost half of our listeners who turned off the podcast or the video at that point because we started talking about Jaws 4, and the other half are like, yeah, come on, you're right. One of you guys is right. I'm just saying it's better than Jaws 3. That's my main point.
We're going to need a bigger podcast.
With the big rubber shark that doesn't move in Jaws 3. It's just, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's just... It's stuck in the pipe, isn't it? It just keeps moving.
Yeah, I have a special place in my heart for Jaws 3 because it was filmed around the corner from my house. It was filmed at SeaWorld, and for years I would go to SeaWorld and see all of the attractions they had for Jaws 3. They had like the opening to the underwater thing, and they had like the shark and stuff. They had all kinds of stuff there. So, and I get to watch it, and I relive the SeaWorld of my childhood. So, soft spot in my heart. But Jaws 4 is still a better movie. And James just says, LOL. I think we'll leave it there. All right. So, that's our episode. This is a fun one, I think. We did our After the Endings for the Lost Boys. We went to town on remakes, and we got some great comments from James and Christine. Thank you guys for popping in. Appreciate it. We're going to start to wrap up, but we're not done for the night if you're watching live. If you are watching the video afterwards or listening on the podcast, we'll be back next week with a new episode. If you're watching live, we're going to sign off for about 2 minutes while we restart with a new video so we can separate them, and we'll be back in like about 2 or 3 minutes. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to the After the Ending Facebook channel. We'll pop back up in your feed very shortly. So
keep refreshing, and we'll be
yes, keep refreshing, like you're trying to buy concert tickets. All right, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. We will be back very shortly. As always, we thank you greatly for listening and or watching. I'm Mike Spring.
And I'm Phil Edwards.
And we'll see you next time.
After the Ending.